ideally collaborate on with someone building the initial tools for this. If someone from the DAO starts building these tools and they're like, hey, it would be nice if the client could do this, then we can take those requirements and build it into the client.
Okay, got it. Okay, cool. Any other questions about this deposit and redeem before I go to the next step?
Well, the thing that we need for deposit and redeem that I think it was just a little bit before we start implementing as many chains as possible is just the data tables on what assets we're going to represent as what in Phonon descriptors. Much more boring than implementing the deposit and redeem on those things.
Dude, I can go through the list with you because I know that's boring work and I know you love it. And then
I don't even know the list.
Yeah, I do.
Figure out all the things.
I do though. I picked.
Well, we need to do
that,
and then we just implement the deposit, redeem, and soon to come validation for each one of those different types of assets.
So I can go through that list with you, and then we can like fine tune it, and then we can go over to Dan and just see what he thinks.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it is the list can just be built up ad hoc, and in my opinion, as long as we add assets to it as they get developed, and we keep a standard list somewhere that everything can reference, and it's fine. It shouldn't be a blocker for doing the rest of this.
Yes, certainly.
And like that's basically the DAO will decide, quote unquote, the DAO will decide what assets can be listed on the Phonon client and transferred from card to card?
Not exactly.
So much that the DAO has to decide, it's just that the client has to have recognizable reference points for each asset. Like each one has to have a currency type tag so that, tools know how to deal with it and the client knows how to deal with it. So it just needs to be something that's like maintained as a standard. Similar to like how the chain ID lists exist for every blockchain out there. There's some group that just keeps a list of it and everyone organizes around that standard. We just need that kind of thing for currency types that fit into Phonons.
Okay, got it. Okay, dumb question time. Is that something that could be done permissionlessly? Like the same way like if someone spins up a new L2, they could just, put in that data into someone's like MetaMask or whatever. Or is that something that we would have to manually do every time that we want to add a new chain?
That's a really good question. I mean, the only the doing deposit and redeem for these things could be done permissionlessly. There's no real need for it to be permissioned. The only permission, so to speak, that you need is that for the client to properly validate these assets on their origin chain, so that there will need to be some integration for each asset in the client that knows how to at least check that this asset actually exists on its system of origin. So, there will be a bit of there's a light amount of integration work for each asset on the client, and then there's the larger deposit and redeem tool work. So that can start, and then, maybe someone who's building a tool just makes a proposal and says I want to make a new currency type with this identifier, and this is what the asset is, and here's the data that needs to be a part of it. And then we can just, work on integrating validation for that into the client.
Okay, that makes sense. Any other questions on this? Okay, sweet. The next thing is this transfer. So this is to be able to send like 3 Phonons from me to Nate or something like that without having me sending the same Phonons over and over again to different people. Is that right?
Yeah, kind of. This transfers v2 is kind of just like a catch-all description of upgrading the Phonon transfer system to fix some of the current unimplemented features. So really, if you're looking at this list, transfers v2, Phonon transfer security, and Phonon transfer proposals and approvals, and also I guess Phonon transfer replayability. Those can all kind of those are all kind of included in the one milestone we're working on, which we're calling secure transfers v2. So it's going to close some security holes in how the transfers work on the current testnet release. Mainly that there could be a problem with replay attacks, like replaying the same packet to a Phonon card repeatedly.
Right.
And it's also going to allow for larger Phonon packets. So right now, I think there's a limit of 4-ish phonons that can be sent at once without multiple messages needing to be relayed. And in the beta, we're going to be able to send like way more than that, probably like 50 at once or something. So that should speed things up and also simplify the logic. And then there's like approval, like a new workflow for like actually approving that you're going to receive certain phonons and also like validating that they exist on their origin chain. It's all kind of a part of that, which is a bunch of transfer upgrades.
Replayability is to be able to send the phonon I have just received to somebody else. Is that replayability?
No.
You could probably use a better name for that. Replayability is really just conceptually, it's preventing the possibility of total loss of a phonon. It just means that like a transfer that's sent from your card will be replayable from your card if needed. So like if it should get lost in transit, like due to some network glitch or power failure, it's able to be replayed, and therefore like you can complete transferring that phonon and not actually completely lose the phonon. Right now there's some small edge cases where that is possible.
Okay, so for any of these, like the transfers V2, transfer security, transfer proposals, replayability, or any of these things, do you want the DAO's help in any of these things?
To some extent. This one, has more like cross-cutting and complex changes going on the card and the client. So for the most part, I think most of that work's going to be done by our core team. But what I've started doing is marking some of the issues in our GitHub as like help wanted. You saw that already? That's good. Those would be good issues to take on for people from the DAO to just hop in and jump on the issue and ask for any clarification needed, and then just start working on it.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start curating issues from this current sprint, which we're focusing on secure transfers V2 right now. We'll start more aggressively curating ones that can be done outside of the core team. I guess the first one I curated now is just a bug from the testnet, which I thought would be doable for someone else to take on.
Okay.
But we'll start breaking off these transfer issues too in the near future.
I need to go through everything you list and then create a bounty for them probably or something, or like somehow give people credit for doing the work. We gotta figure that out. Cool. So I put the deposit and redeems, like the leadership of that, like whoever's gonna be in charge of that is gonna be from the DAO. And this transfer stuff is like the leadership is Grid Plus, but we can still hopefully help out and take stuff off your plate. But I like to say that like the leader here is Grid Plus for that. And then for open source improvements, that's like the documentation and tooling and bounties. I guess that would be another DAO-led effort.
Certainly for like bounties and stuff. We could probably collaborate on this one. We have to open up some of our tools that have like proprietary stuff we've been meaning to remove from the repos, so we can open source some of that. But I imagine this would be a good place for people to hop in who are trying to, get the build environment up and running on different systems or whatever. And having, user community documentation for that stuff would be great.
Okay, cool. And front end V3, I don't get what this one is exactly.
This is really just upgrading the user interface on the web to just handle a bunch of things better. Anthony's working on redesigning a lot of that right now. So that's something that we're mainly going to take on,
Yeah, and then this would be like another thing where you just like mark help wanted, and then people in the DAO can hop in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can sort out how to get bounties going for those issues. However you want to do that, maybe we can, coordinate on the size of those or whatever needs to be done there. It would definitely be cool to get some of those bountied.
Drake has informed me that he has a bot for this, so we will use the Drake. And then native phones I'm excited about is this one. Do we need to reflash cards for this native phone and transfer stuff?
Yeah, we're going to need to reflash cards for pretty much all this. But as part of these open source improvements, we're going to be releasing our own internal tools for reflashing cards, which makes it pretty easy. It's just like a matter of removing some dumbly licensed code from the repo so we can legally share that. But once that's done, yeah, it'll be pretty easy. Anyone who has a testnet card will probably find it pretty easy to reflash, and then we'll put out some documentation on how to keep up to date with new versions as we start to release working code. We should have like a functional first cut of the beta code within the next couple of weeks. That'll at least provide a foundation for some of these changes.
In the Java card repo, are the tools to reflash cards now?
There are reflash cards. They just don't have every single thing you could possibly need to do it. You gotta download some stuff from some other places that are difficult to find and we're not allowed to hand out.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, you could use it now, but we have another repo that we use like above that level to do most things, and it'll make things a little easier. So we're gonna try to release that too, just to get a better user experience for new devs.
Don't fuck around. Got it. And then the P2P network, I also, is this just removing the jump box?
Not necessarily removing, but providing an alternate networking solution. Yeah, we're good. We're working on that, but it's kind of more in the background at the moment. So we'll probably continue with the jump box for the foreseeable future, but we'll try to add to P2P networking once we get to it, basically.
Okay, I have another dumb question about the jump box because I don't quite understand it. It's a server that allows us to communicate from card to card and also store all the data from the testnet?
Those are two different servers. Basically, the way it works is the jump box. You connect card clients to the jump box, and all the jump box does is it ferries messages between one to the other. Because it's difficult to set up peer-to-peer networking, and doing a jump box like that was easy.
Right.
So it just ferries messages back and forth so that you can do transfers and stuff. The way the logging stuff works is there's a totally separate server that when Phonon starts up, it checks to see if you have that logging key, and then if it does, then anytime something would be logged to the console, it logs it to the console and then fires off a hook to send it to that server, so then we can store it and look at it and use it. And
got it.
Yeah.
And is the future going to be no need for jump box? And obviously we wouldn't have the logging feature anymore, right?
There's likely going to be a lot of different ways to connect remotely in the Phonon protocol. There's probably going to be a central server that uses its own sort of, not protocol, but its own specific implementation of it for if there's like if there's a centralized DEX, and it's going to be a different way than if you're sitting between you and your family, and if you have one card plugged into, if you just have one card plugged in so you can receive donations, it'll probably be connected to in a different way. Depends. So the jump box is probably going to stick around, assuming I can make it stable enough, because right now it's a little unstable. I think everyone knows that. So assuming it can be stable enough that, it's something that we can put out and say this is definitely at least beta quality software, it'll stick around as long as it meets their standards.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is that like the clients, like each Phonon client with its corresponding card is like a node in the network, and there are many different ways that you could connect those nodes together. Right now, Jumpbox is the main way to bridge them together, but you could imagine other people hosting their own jump boxes to provide another point to connect, or like a peer-to-peer implementation where nodes connect together directly, or something like a DEX service might host its own connection method for cards to hook up to it and run and operate the DEX. So it'll be like a pluggable networking system.
That's really interesting. And like maybe the DAO could develop its like some service that could help people easier facilitate peer-to-peer connection at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally pluggable interface already. So yeah, I mean, if the DAO wants to make efforts in the direction of building a peer-to-peer networking system, that would be cool. We were contracted with the developer working on it, but they ended up parting ways because it didn't really work out there. But we'll look into developing that in the future. But yeah, maybe it's also something that someone could just contribute. Yeah.
Additionally, if somebody wants to waste some time, a neat idea would be to have it so that the packets that need to be ferried between clients are printed out as QR codes, and then each client scans the QR codes, and you go back and forth a bunch of times to transfer phonons. I mean, that would work. You could do it by paper. It'd be kind of funny.
Yeah, Sneakernet. Yeah,
Now, it takes
totally doable.
freaking forever because there's like 50 messages that have to go back and forth each time you do a transfer, but still, it'd be kind of fun.
Should do it by mail.
Yeah. I don't know that your card will stay on and working properly that entire time, but hey, let's see.
Let's see. That's cool. All right, does anyone have any other beta questions? I want to talk about the future stuff as well, but does anyone have any more beta questions or comments or concerns or anything? Okay. So just want to run down. Actually, one thing of the beta is if anyone has any thoughts on things that the DAO should do that's not listed here, definitely type it in or think about it and put it in later, but it's just something that's not listed here. So if you have thoughts around protocol features or stuff on the client or whatever that you want the DAO to work on, just let us know. For the future development stuff, I just want to go through and see if any of these are things that we can start now, that we don't need to necessarily wait. We can do concurrently. So there's the card platform upgrade. So I guess that's something that would have to probably wait. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, it's really more of a manufacturer issuer concern. So this one's for us, and we're just waiting on new software to be released. So yeah, nothing really to do there at the moment.
It's basically is that just a function of talking to the manufacturer and like saying you want to support this curve in the next card production run?
Yeah.
We're not the biggest customer, the manufacturer. It's for us to wait right now.
Okay.
We're just waiting for them to come out with their next release. They're still working on the software, so we're waiting for them to say, "Hey, we released this new card that supports this curve type, and you can buy it now."
Okay.
And then
we'll like out of our
work
hand.
on porting things over to that at that point. Yeah.
And what does the Edwards curve help us with?
More chains.
Okay. Yeah, supporting more chains. What's the big one that uses Edwards? Solana? Can't remember which one uses Edwards, but there's like a couple of big chains that use the Edwards curve. Which will require platform support for generating those keys.
Like platform integration, I feel like at least a feasibility study that DAO could do, especially on like the eSIM and mobile stuff. I know like Rick's been poking around quite a lot, so maybe that's something we could do concurrently, at least just having a plan.
Yeah, I think so. Getting some clarity on what the various approaches to implementing an eSIM on an eSIM would be helpful.
I think if you get a developer account on one of these sites that allows you to program eSIMs, then it'd be very useful. You might just be able to try flashing the applet on an eSIM and see what happens,
Yeah. Sweet. Decentralized certificate issuance, that's basically finding a way for certificates for the DAO to like recognize new certificates for different manufacturers.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like the whole certificate authority maintenance scheme we talked about. This is like the big one where we absolutely need help from the DAO to develop this, because it ties in with like the tokenomics. Like, what is the DAO going to require for manufacturers to issue certs? How are certs going to be maintained to be secure? How are we going to verify that like there's a secure process going into the issuance of cards and punish bad actors and all this stuff? That all kind of has to be determined and operated by the DAO. So that one can definitely start, I think.
Is that something we would have, like we would talk to a manufacturer first and figure out, and like have a conversation with them about how they would start supporting Phonon, and then work backwards from there to figure out how there's like a game theory element, and then there's also the tokenomics element, but we'd first have to like talk to a couple of manufacturers and see if they want, making sure that they want to be a part of this and what their process is and all that.
I'm not sure it's the manufacturers. I feel like there's two entities involved here. Like there's manufacturers who actually produce the secure hardware. I don't really know if we're going to be able to change their operations at all, or we need anything from them except for like buying the product. And then there's like the issuer. So like in this case, like the cards come from like NXP or some supplier, like the issuer for the current testnet cards is Grid Plus, right? So it's really that like Grid Plus needs to have a secure process for issuing software and certificates onto the cards. We can already kind of assume that if they're bought from a valid manufacturer, maybe the DAO maintains a list of valid hardware.
Okay.
And then, we put some rules about a process in place that issuers must follow to securely provision phone assets. That ties in with the technical rules about the certificates. Yeah.
Like we were talking, sort of like ISO. This is like a very like a process, like a document that like issues process and how things get done versus like some like it's not like we're building a product here. We're like sort of this is like governance and kind of almost like an engineering process document and a tokenomics thing associated with how we manage it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just think it would take someone with some like, hardware and software security expertise and some understanding of like, software governance to set it up.
Yeah, this is a big job and gonna be interesting.
For sure.
I'm sure Rig would be excited to sink into this. This is very Rig. Cool. The transfers 3 conditional and prorating. So this is like more so this is like doing if then type stuff or like this idea of I think it's posted phonons, like sending phonons to the cards that aren't necessarily plugged in. Like this is more complex.
This could potentially incorporate posted phonons. Haven't really determined, exactly what the next things we're going to want to do at this are. But the transfers we're working on now are like basic.
Yeah.
I want to send to, from point A to point B. Point B wants to send it back. Simple transfer, but you can use the same primitive structures to build more complex transaction types like that. Guarantee a swap between 2 parties will be completed, and like neither party will be able to emerge with the counterparty's assets without also like exchanging the assets they agreed to. So kind of mimicking like what an escrow contract would do, but just directly peer to peer.
That's super cool.
I think you can do a lot of interesting types of transactions that are totally secure within the protocol by extending the basic transfers we have now.
So I feel like V2 kind of has to be done before we get to V3.
Yeah, V2 is going to provide like a totally secure foundation for simple transfers and like some good building blocks. And then, with V3, we can consider doing more complex things that allow for, more interesting types of activity.
Makes sense. I'm so interested in the escrow stuff. Anyway, so the external security audit, we obviously can't do anything with that now. Ecosystem support, I'd be interested in any thoughts on this, if there's anything we can start building now, like ChangeMaker kind of brings to mind, but if there's anything we could do concurrently here, like all ears.
Yeah, I think, I think development for something like a ChangeMaker could and probably should start now. The client is not exactly ready to support it, but we're ready to start building the API to support it. So like if someone were to come in and start building that, like it would be very helpful together.
Yep.
Feedback on what exactly the client and the core code needs to support to make that a possibility. And I think, once we have a beta out there and we're ready to start using production assets, like having a ChangeMaker or a DEX is like a pretty fundamental service that really makes the ecosystem useful. So I think it would make sense for the DAO to support the development of that to be ready like right around the time like the Phonon protocol itself goes into production.
Yep, makes sense. Performance optimization, probably not a lot here we could do now, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's just catch all for, we're going to work on the performance of the card, yeah.
I have a hot take on this one. Oh, on the card itself, there's...
on the whole thing, the whole stack, but yeah.
As for the whole stack, there's the Phonon core could be rewritten in Rust by someone.
Oh, that'd be sick.
Now, I don't know, someone on the DAO wants to do that. Maybe I spin up a new alt account and just do it myself and pretend to be a new person. Like the Phonon God situation.
Yeah, my bet is that most of the bottlenecks in performance are going to be on the card and not in the Go client. So most of the bottlenecks worth working on are probably not going to be helped by a Rust client, but maybe they will. I don't know.
Nate comes up with a different username on Discord, switches microphones with a voice changer.
I wouldn't even go that far. Hey, what's going on? It's me, Schmate. I wrote the thing in Rust. Don't worry about why I haven't been getting all my Grid Plus work done the last couple of weeks. Anyway.
This has the fake nose and fake glasses combo. He's like on camera. That'd be amazing.
Boy, your voice is uncanny.
Yeah, that Nate guy has this very cool voice and is very handsome. I don't know who he is, but yeah.
And posted phonons is something I guess we could, if someone wanted to take it on, I guess they could do that? Or do you think it makes sense to wait until transfers V2 is done?
It's going to be a protocol thing, and I haven't seen a suggestion on how to do that that doesn't break the other security guarantees of Phonon. So
okay.
I suppose keep chugging at it.
Yeah, we could work on a design in parallel. I know there's been a revision or two, but yeah, I'm not sure that one that, we're confident is like a fully functioning design has been put out there. But it is a cool potential feature. But we want to see a full working design, because it's any additional feature you add onto the card applet, introduces risk. It could break the security model of other things. And so we want to be very, very careful about what features we decide to include at that core card layer, because everything you add in adds risk to the other layers, and it's hard enough to get all of the basic stuff working securely.
So of the things we kind of have now that the DAO could work on, we have the sort of certificate issuance project, which is a big one. We have building a change maker. We have an eSIM, like feasibility study, basically. We have the sort of documentation stuff. We have the deposit and redeem sort of front end. Of all those, what do you think is the most vital? Or how would you rank those things in your mind?
I think for me, the most vital one is the decentralized certificate issuance. I think that's absolutely critical to get right. It has to function and be really very good, or this doesn't really work at all. So that one's just, that's a critical item for sure. Second for me would be the deposits and redeem stuff. Or I guess maybe it'd be better to refer to it as just like asset integrations, like just making the assets work with Phonon, because we could also use like the contributors who want to write deposit and redeems. We could also use like the asset validation code to be contributed to the client too. It would probably be pretty natural to do that. So that could be like a contribution to the core code that the same people are making, and it could start right now. Like the design for how that should work is pretty much already there. It might need a little discussion between us and whoever's developing it to get it kicked off, but it should be like doable without much further intervention required from the core teams. And I think there's plenty of assets to cover, because we want to get a lot of different assets integrated with Phonon. So it's probably a lot of work to get started there.
Yeah, and maybe change maker third.
Yeah, I would say ChangeMaker is a little bit more future facing. There's some time until the beta and then the production is ready. So there's some time until the ChangeMaker is ready. But I imagine that's also a complex app to develop. So you want to give it some runway to get started long before.
Yeah, that's my thought. It's going to take a long time.
Do you think that the documentation supports that though? And like that should be more priority just because it further enables the ChangeMaker? Or?
I'm just sort of thinking, like in my mind, is how long would it take to go this long distance? Like when do I want to start? Like it's not prioritizing in terms of like what's the most important thing. It's just like what do we need to start now to finish in like a relatively good time? Not this is all like really, but yeah,
the documentation that we want that, and it supports this, and I know we could improve that. And on that topic, I wanted to just mention, like, I've been trying to get some roadmap stuff cleaned up so I can share it. I have those. I have the project board ready to share, but I just had to get an owner from Grid Plus to approve making it public for me, and they're currently tied up at the factory. So, but by the end of the day, hopefully that'll be shared publicly, and you all can see our current task list. But in terms of documentation, as people jump in, like, let us know what you need from us to produce. It's not always obvious, like what needs to be documented for us working within the system all the time as we do.
Yeah, there's been some people who want to get involved and start coding. I'm just not exactly sure where the priority is. So this is helpful to give them like specific tasks they can sink their teeth into. So that's helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we should probably have some sort of like getting started guide. Like we started adding contribution guidelines to the repos, but I know there's like 3 repositories and work streams that cut across them. So it's maybe not super easy for people to tell where to jump in. And I'd like to make it really easy to do that. So if people do jump in and have questions, like, send them my way. We can work on getting documents for that audience sorted out from there, or figure out exactly what needs to get produced.
Actually, that's probably a first step before any of this shit gets done. It's like, here's how to help, and here's all the things we want to do, and here's what we need. And that's probably the first thing we have to do.
Yeah.
And people can understand. Okay.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, maybe someone from the DAO can just take on like producing some getting started documentation and just like asking my team for specific information and getting it organized, or just at least figuring out what needs to be presented.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that's a task that I will figure out who can help with. I'll probably need Rick's help.
Would that be a position we would eventually maybe turn into a project manager, so that we could have just some oversight over these different work streams and how they interact?
Yeah, a product manager makes sense.
Something open source doesn't do. Because I feel like we're getting to the point now where it's like we know where the silos are, and we just need to connect them in intelligent ways instead of having it all be jumping so much.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially when you start having different teams coming in. You don't want people duplicating efforts, and you want things to kind of, for it to make sense. Having a product manager would be useful, probably, at least part-time, just get everything organized, and being a clear, like a bridge between developers who want to come in and, let's say, help Grid Plus with something. They could have, talk to this person to help interface with them and see where needs are and all that stuff. So I think that would make sense.
Yeah, project manager is going to be a lot
So
more
is that
useful.
something that maybe
Project manager is going to be a lot more useful once we cleave the lines between what the DAO is in charge of and what Grid Plus is in charge of.
Yeah.
Grid Plus has kind of been handling project management internally for a while, and we're likely going to continue doing that for the Grid Plus product. For the DAO-owned portions of the system, then it makes a lot of sense for the DAO to have its own project manager and then coordinate with the Grid Plus project management.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Makes sense.
I mean,
Okay.
I think we're talking about breaking out some pretty significant DAO work streams here, so having someone to oversee all those makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, I think I'm gonna write this shit down before I forget half of it, and then share it, and then probably need to have Rake or somebody help with just the developer portion, and then we can at least share this with the community. And I know there's a couple people hungry to jump in, so they can start jumping in, and then we start prioritizing only these tasks and figuring out resources and time and all that stuff, which I don't have my head around yet on how much resources to devote to each of these, and figuring out what it looks like backing out from our budget and everything. That's a project that's gonna be fun.
Yeah. And as it comes to the different things in the future, the most important one is, of course, the multi-manufacturer certificate authority, which will take relatively small amount of time. If you have 6 people sitting in a room, you can bang it out in a couple of days. Something like the eSIM mobile integration is going to be building an entire mobile app on top of getting your head around all these new eSIM workflows and APIs and things, and that will take 6 months to a year. And
I like the certificate issuance is that like a manufacturing skill set like that you would need, or is it like an electrical engineer? And there's also like this tokenomics part, which is, I guess, just someone with like a generally smart business minded person. But for the manufacturing part, who do I need to recruit for that?
It's going to be less a manufacturing and engineering thing, and more just a process thing that's very deeply informed by people who know how various certificate schemes work in crypto and otherwise.
Yeah.
It's more of a cybersecurity job than manufacturing. Like
Exactly.
there's some manufacturing knowledge needed, but basically just insofar as they can certify what a valid puff chip is for our application. But then the main process design stuff is around understanding how a certificate authority operates and how to design one specifically for this system. So I think that's like a cybersecurity skill set, like something you'd find on a security specific software professional.
Also, how to set up a scheme within the limitations of the Phonon card, given that the card has no knowledge of the internet or the universe outside of what it can receive and send through APDUs, and maintaining the security of getting certificates into the card without assuming that, like, maybe someone's computer or their client is compromised, and still having security on the card.
Okay.
Yeah, so obviously we'll make ourselves available to meet with whoever's in charge of this to talk about the requirements and like the capabilities and constraints of the software. But yeah, it'd be great if the DAO had someone who's coming up with the overall solution.
Probably need to pair, like, this person is probably Rake, but probably pair them with a very good process oriented person who can like document everything really clearly and ask all the necessary dumb questions to like get the document together.
Yeah, because the process needs to be designed, but then once we actually go to production, it also needs to be operated. Like there will need to be some kind of body that governs it and determines who's allowed to issue certs and how.
Yeah, and like how the DAO does it, and we're talking all this like game theoretic stuff, which is like really interesting, but it has to like contend with the reality of these issuers too. Like they have to be able to interact with it and operate and understand how to interact with it. So yeah,
totally. I think that needs to be carefully designed and all the incentives, investigated and questioned.
Idiot proof and simple, but also like protect the DAO. So yeah, this is an important, interesting job that could, if it doesn't work, could fuck the whole protocol. So yeah, important.
Totally.
Okay, sweet. So I kind of have a sense of the priorities, at least for the next few months, and I'll like write this up if I can, and then share it, and everyone take a look at it. If it sucks, just make it better, and then we can start. Once we have this, hopefully we have the resources to do all these things, and then and get it all done. So that's really cool. Sweet. Anyone else?
I just want to let you guys know, for anyone who didn't hear, that I'll be out next week for DevCon.
Yep.
Enjoy. I'll be back after that.
Rick,